Okay, build is happening. Okay, so you were laughing at me for parking my load in the render.
Yeah. Not a good place for it.
Okay. And by the way, I just got to tell you, you kept on encouraging me to modify the state machine, and I kind of balked at that. And it was great. It was not nearly as, it was almost as easy as you said it would be.
Yeah, it's not bad.
And so I got bitten by the namespace keyword that your Copilot would have detected, and I got the without working. And so right now,
right. So if you go jump to that state machine definition,
yeah,
go back, yeah,
right,
yeah, this report machine.
Yep. Go into it.
Yeah, jump into that guy.
Okay.
So you see, scroll down a bit.
Yep.
So for reports, the machine's pretty darn simple, right? There's the initial handler that basically figures out, all right, did you want to run it on mount? If so, we're going to run it now. Otherwise, we're just going to go to state gathering parameters. So
by the way, should I be, so if I'm overwriting the report, load report, is this going to bite me?
Well, jump to that, because that's going to be an env based function, because the env gets threaded through everything. Right. And so load report just tries to figure out who the actor is, what the body row is, right? It's trying to build up the query.
Yeah.
And then it's going to run the load using, what do we have? The parameters, which is current params. And
right. So I wrote a my load report.
Okay.
So which seems to work, but does that mean that the original load report is going to run on the?
I didn't. Yeah, because you made your own handler for load, right?
No, I overwrote standby.
Yeah, let's look what you events.
I overwrote event run.
Oh, okay. So yeah, if you set it to mount, to load on mount, it wouldn't do the right thing.
Actually, that's interesting.
Is it set to run on mount?
I thought it was. Yeah.
Well, go back and show me what you did again. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh no.
I didn't get good sleep last night.
Oh, that sucks. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely being called. I overwrote the event run handler.
Well, sure. But so no event run happens on initial mount, right? So if you go back to the state machine, that's what I was kind of trying to point out, is the initial state always runs on entry.
Yeah.
And so the very first time you load the report, yes, it's going to use this load report if you didn't override this handler, and that load report is going to load the whole thing.
Okay, maybe I'm just not detecting
it.
So
if you go to that guy and look at it, it must be loading the whole thing, because there's not much else it could do.
So okay, yeah, I believe you.
Well, I mean, that's just what the state machine says. So you overrode event run, which is in that state machine as well.
Yep.
As a separate event handler for when you're in the gathering parameters state.
Yeah. And I guess I'm happy that, I mean, this actually, maybe I should, so it's actually loading comments in a really nice way. Oh, actually. Okay. So yeah, it's, and here's all the
All the what?
I see all these card comment
Mm,
loads.
yeah.
That is because that was actually what I was pondering. Why is that happening? And it's because it's happening on every render.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Because okay, got it.
Pull that out of your render.
Yeah,
Uh,
right. It's right here. Is there a keyboard accelerator for comment out the form? Or no,
there's not
actually,
a keyboard accelerator. Yeah, yeah. I just do pound underscore. Yeah.
that'll work.
I mean, there's a command slash will put semicolons on them
Yeah.
if you've got multiple lines, but yeah.
Okay, so this will not load the comments, or it's already, the comments are already loaded. Okay, so if I don't add them here, you're saying add it to a state machine?
I'm puzzled as to why the comments aren't loading, because you didn't actually change the code that would keep them. That you didn't change the code that loads on mount, so I don't understand why it's not. Is this report already mounted for another list, and you're just changing which list you're going to?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
never unmounted. Yeah.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
the reason that's doing that. Okay, so the run on mount is for the very first list that you end up on. And then as you navigate from list to list, it's the same component, you're just changing which list. And since you didn't remount, yes, you're not rerunning that
Got
state.
it.
And that's why.
So I got lucky.
So you got
Okay.
lucky, sure.
Yeah,
sure.
okay, got it. So I guess.
So yeah, so what I was trying to communicate over the channel is you should look through that whole state machine and see what, because it's not that big or complex. The form one is way harder.
Yeah.
The report one only has like 3 states, I think, and it doesn't have to do much. It's got the initial state, but then it's got loading, which obviously that's like while it's loading, what's going to happen? It could either finish loading or it could fail loading, right? And then the gathering parameters is where most of the rest of the stuff is, right?
Yes.
So I was suggesting that you should put it in that event go-to-page, right? Because next page and prior page, really it would be the go-to-page star. Like you'd have to override all 3 of those probably. Because when you go to a page, that's when you could trigger a load of the comments just for that page of stuff. And the state of the state machine would have the current page list of idents. So you could just walk through those in that event handler and trigger a load for each one of those comment sets.
Go through the current page and just do a df load there.
Yeah. I mean, one of a thing you might try, and we'd have to look at the namespaces in there, but I think this is a pretty self-contained namespace. I don't think many of these functions, I think they're all in this namespace. And if aliasing wise, or rather namespace wise, it probably mainly uses : UISM, which is in the require. I would copy the def state machine out of this namespace and paste it into your own namespace. And then I would copy over each individual function into your namespace that it uses. So and then you can just set the machine to that one, and then you can play with the whole state machine at once, like in situ where you can see it all.
Yeah.
And then you could pare it down, to the minimum later if you want, right? And that'll make it just a whole lot easier to play with.
Okay.
Because just trying to override one handler, you're seeing, well, it's calling these helper functions, and really it's the helper function you want to change, but changing the helper function means you have to override multiple handlers.
So you're saying just copies into a new namespace?
Yeah, I wouldn't take the whole thing, because that's got it's got the def macro for defsc report, and it's got a bunch of other crap, but I would take the def state machine, and then anything that doesn't resolve, I'd come back and grab.
Okay, got it.
Right. And then you can just go into that go-to-page star, right? And you can read that. That's pretty easily, right? Like set my current page, populate that page, change the page number, and you could just put an additional piece into that thread that says, and load the comments, right? For that page.
So good. Okay, got it. I think I can handle, I think I will do that.
Yeah, and just make sure you write as a function that takes an env and returns an env. That's the main trick to UI state machines. That's really it.
Yeah.
Right.
By the way, it was marvelous. Just finally overriding one state. It was really kind of exhilarating to see how easy that was. So one of the things that's happening is the archive operation takes about a second, and it's actually annoying me to no end that I have to wait a second for the next row for it to disappear. And let me see if I can get this right. So if you archive a card, it has to wait a second before the card goes away and the next one sort of select row, the selected row stays the same.
Mhm.
So I want to switch this over to the same trick that we did for the first one with stories, where instead of advancing the row number, go to the selected ID. Am I making sense? So that's one. So I think I'm going to do that one next, right? So that at least I can get advance the next
Well, when you
card.
archive, I mean, you could go ahead and do the archive locally optimistically, right? In the action side of the
Yeah.
mutation,
Oh
right?
no, totally.
And so your UI should update immediately at that point, even though the full stack thing hasn't happened.
Wait a minute. Hang on. Maybe I read that. So you're saying
You've probably put it in the OK action,
yes.
right? Now, the OK action is trying to figure out, is it actually okay, right?
Yeah.
Because unless you throw an exception, everything's an OK action, right? I talked to the
Right.
server, but I'm not sure what happened, right?
Right. So I actually do return. Um, I think I do fill this in or somewhere.
Right. And if it's not true, you don't want to remove it, right?
Right.
Okay, so take the just the opposite approach. Optimistically remove it, and if it's not okay, put it back.
Where do I stick it? Where do I store it? Okay, yeah, I think I was gonna do that. Okay,
and
yeah.
so that's the trick, is you'll have to remember somewhere what you removed where, so you can put it back, like the undo, right?
Yeah.
And so that could be as simple as, I mean, you could do stupid, silly things, like you could make an atom, right?
Yep.
Above this def mutation is just like, what's the last thing I delete? The last,
right.
what did this list of idents just look like?
Right.
So that if OK comes in and it's not that, you just put the list of idents back.
Right. Well, I do return the ID,
you know?
right? So I can actually just go retrieve it from the atom.
Oh, you could, but like where? Like you're modifying a list of right? You're modifying a list. So I'm saying just save the whole list, right, into the atom. And if it comes out back wrong, put it back. Right? Just like do the stupid simple thing.
Store the whole vector.
Why not? It's an immutable thing, right? It can't be changed.
Actually, so what does the source okay, how do I copy the
So, right, so your delete card from list is it looks like another mutation, right?
Yep.
This guy is another mutation, but all it does is it searches through a list of idents. It's probably just a call to, I would use remove-ident from the normalized state helpers.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I grabbed
yeah, exactly. Remove entity, remove-ident.
Yeah.
I wouldn't remove the entity because you don't know that the entity's gone, and that's just GC for memory. Who cares, right? It's a browser. It's got gigabytes. A card's not a big deal, right? I wouldn't bother doing that. And so I would take this cards path, this right here.
Yeah.
I just pull that out of state and put it in the atom. And then if it comes back not okay, put it back.
So grab it from the state atom.
Yeah. Put it in your own like undo buffer, right?
Yeah.
And if OK comes back bad, undo it. It's pretty simple.
Oh my gosh. Tony, that's so cool. Okay, that's a great way. Actually,
I mean, a more generalized mechanism would be elegant, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of the cheap and dirty way of doing it, but
no, I love it.
Immutable data, so just throwing it off to the side. It's not a multi-user system. It's a browser. You got one thread, like.
Yep. Perfect. And you can see my confusion about this. I think my recollection is, you said. You're saying I can get rid of the remove entity?
Okay, so remove entity, right? That's just an entry in a table, and yeah, it's gone from the server, like it went somewhere else. Well, you archived it. It's not actually gone. It's in some other list, right? Technically, there's still a Trello card with that ID in existence, right?
Yeah. But my recollection is that, and maybe this is why I have to rerun the report, is that if I don't do that, then I have this I have a nil card that is still in the table.
You'll have a card in the table, but it'll still have that ID, and the remove-ident will get rid of pointers to it.
Ah,
Get rid of the pointer to it. So yeah, it's just corrupt. It's sitting around. It's not been garbage collected, but it's not hurting anything.
oh,
Right. But by removing it, then you can't easily undo it because you've lost the thing to point to.
got it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And where you're going to run into a little bit more of a complication here, and this is where I was saying this is a cheap and dirty way of doing
Yeah.
it, is now what's going to happen is you're going to press archive, 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 archive.
Yeah. Right.
Right. And you'll have 4 in flight. And if one of those fails, like, it's not going to undo correctly.
Okay.
Right,
So you're saying
so-
that getting rid of the remove entity will not result in nils being in the pagination. That
No, it shouldn't.
because I think it was, but that was because I wasn't rerunning the report.
Well, so
Yeah.
here's another thing to consider is you're using a RAD report now, and there are 2 places where that ident is stored.
Yes. Oh, right.
Right. There's the full list of all of
Right.
them.
Yep.
Actually, there's multiple places because RAD reports do separate step for filtering, a separate step for sorting.
Right.
So it can actually be in 3 different places.
Right. Which I
So
think
if
is
you've actually archived it, in order
Yeah.
for it to look right, you'd want to remove it from the base list and then rerun filter, the filter event. You don't have to rerun the whole report. You don't have to make it
Right.
load the report. You just have to tell it to refilter so that it goes through
right.
and updates all of the sub lists from that base list.
Then refilter, and then refilter causes repagination.
Yeah. And now if you're not removing the entity, undo actually gets a little easier because back in your OK action, like you said, you know the ID.
Yeah.
And so you can just stick it back in the list.
Right.
And in fact, if you stick it back in the base list and rerun filter, rerun sort, and everything
Yeah.
should come out where it's supposed to be, independent of where it is in the loaded data. Right. Because
Right.
the loaded data is unsorted to begin with. So the fact that you removed it from the middle and put it at the end wouldn't hurt you.
So you're saying
That'd
the
be
copy is the
that'd be the
base
easier
or
way
the
to undo it, or better way to
current
undo
list?
it.
For the undo, copy the base list or the
I'm saying I'm changing my mind. I'm
yeah,
saying
yeah.
that because you're going to want to click archive 6 times in a row, and if
Yeah.
the middle one fails, undo is going to be all screwed up. That's
Yep.
a bad idea. That your OK action is going to have the ID. What you can do is in the forward direction, optimistically do this where you don't remove the entity, you just remove the ident from the base list. You rerun you trigger the event for filtering the report so it can immediately, update the UI. And then if the OK action comes back bad, you can just tack that ident on the end of the base data and rerun filter. It doesn't have to be where it came from. You don't have to remember the position of it.
Yeah.
Because that base data gets filtered and sorted in order to generate the display. And so those are derived lists. You don't have to worry about positioning.
Right.
Because positioning are already being handled for you. I assume you're sorting.
I am.
You've got a sort order established.
Yes.
So.
Okay. Let me okay, because this is so great. I'm going to repeat. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Optimistic delete, remove the ident, but don't remove entity.
Mm-hmm.
Copy this to an undo.
No, I'm saying you don't need to do that because you've got the ID. All you have to do is if it fails,
put
the ident back in the list there that I'm pointing at. At the end, and then run filter.
If it fails, put the ID.
The ident with the ID parameterized ID, right?
Yep. Sorry. Put this back.
Yeah. Put that. Yeah.
Into
the list up where my cursor, up where this guy.
Into cards path.
Yeah. Into the cards
path. At end.
At end. And so that Trello list ID, Trello list / cards, is that actually the base loaded data? I don't think it is. If you go look at Fulcro inspect at the actual report, because this is a report now, right? I'm not sure how this is working.
Yeah, this that gets populated by the resolver.
No. I'm saying that this is a DefSC report, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so if this is a DefSC, it's not.
This is the DefSC report. And these are the body items. Sorry, you can't see my cursor.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. So if you
Right.
look at this in the report definition down here.
Yeah.
So if you go find what is it, Focal Logic, Fulcro rad report
Yep.
/ID.
Sorry,
You're in component ID right now.
Oh yeah. Okay. Fulcro rad report.
Yeah, that one.
Oops.
And then you focus in on the one we're on.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's the loaded data.
Yep.
Right. This is the list I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right. The current rows, I think, is just the page.
Yep.
That's the page of data.
Yes.
So the loaded data, when you run the filter, right? If you look up here in UI cache,
yep,
that loaded data gets first filtered into the filtered list and then sorted into the sorted list. And so these two are subsets and reorderings of this main thing. So what you're going to modify when you undo is you're going to throw those onto the end of the loaded data. And then you're going to call the event.
So not cards path, but the com.rad something.
Yeah. I don't know what this is. Was this from a prior iteration? Is archive working?
Yeah.
It could be working because you're using from remove entity.
Right.
The remove-ident probably isn't even working because that's not where the cards are right now.
Oh, that's interesting.
And remove entity does go through the entire database and remove that ident everywhere.
Oh my goodness. No, in fact, that was my big surprise. This wasn't working. So it required the remove entity. It's because the card path is wrong.
The card path is wrong. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's, yeah. So you don't want to remove entity, but you do want remove ident, but you do want the right path.
Right.
So the path is that report ID, rad report ID /ID, whatever, and then the fully qualified name of your report, and then UI loaded data. But loaded data isn't what's shown on the screen. So then you have to run the filter again. The filter event, trigger the filter event on the report.
Filter event.
And that will
filter row, event filter.
Yeah.
Cool.
Filter. Well, yeah, just call filter rows.
Okay, got it. And so then that means I get all the benefits. I can still use selected row.
Selected row. What is selected? Is it an ident or an index?
It's an index.
Then yes, if that's all you do in the mutation, then the index will fall onto the next one that happens to fall into that slot.
Right. So it's this one disappears and then something else just takes its place.
Which could create a bug, right? Because selected row is expected to always point at something that's actually there.
Right. Which
and
I
so
think
if you fall off the end, you might have to mess with that.
And which gets to one thing I did notice. So I think the page count is 10. Okay, so we have 13 items here. So I'm going to.
So if you're on the last one and you archive it, your select row is going to be off the bottom.
Right, and I think that just threw an exception. No, wait, where?
Yeah, I don't know that it uses selected row unless.
Oh, actually, we're fine. Okay,
yeah,
great.
I think it's okay. I think it just leaves it as one.
So at some point in time, I actually did trigger an exception, but I think it was okay. Great. That is no longer the case. Okay, great. Super.
Yeah, that way it'll still work, even if all four of them fail. Like archive, and they all four fail. All four mutations will put themselves back on the list and refilter, and yeah, it should just work.
Awesome. Okay, so I don't need to change how next and previous work with this. This is great. Wait, what was the answer for lazy loading? Take out the render.
It's basically to modify goto-page star. Is I think what the
modify goto-page. Okay, got it. Copy into my namespace.
Yeah, make a copy of that def machine and just walk through it. They're pretty easy.
Yeah.
right? And that one in particular, it just doesn't have that much to it.
It was in go-to-page star.
Yeah. And so that'll, I think on load, on the initial run, it uses go-to-page even to show the first page. So I think that is the, if I remember right, that is going to be the central place that if you modify it, basically everything is going to fall into place for that.
Okay.
And I actually, UI state machines have a thing that I added to them that I've never personally used
Yeah.
called plugins. And this is kind of an optimal place to use a plugin, is to make this go-to-page function something that you can easily override state machine itself, but I didn't write it that way. So
Okay. Well, okay, this is great. I'm so close. In fact, just for what it's worth, I processed, I think, over 1,000 Trello cards over the weekend, which is actually exactly what I need to sort of research this book. So this is so great, Tony.
Oh, good.
Is there anything? I think, gosh, I'm getting so close to having something that's exactly what I want. I mean, at some point, my next step would be try to get this running, like not on my laptop with OAuth. So I'm just kind of kicking that out a couple weeks. But I think that's it. I'm having a blast, Tony. I feel like Fulcro is making me very productive.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's
after your 40 hours of investment in learning or more.
It's terrific. All right, Tony. Well, hey, listen, I am thanks for the time.
Yeah, same. Appreciate the sounding board.